All right, class, we're going to begin our unit on transformations, which means we basically take what we're going to call a pre-image, and I'll talk about that vocab in a moment, and we're going to move it, or we're going to reshape it, or resize it. We're going to rotate it. We're going to change its orientation. So we're basically manipulating a triangle or a trapezoid or some other polygon. And so it is important to think about some vocab, and I want to go ahead and just mention briefly what kind of transformations will we be working with. One will be translations, and that's the subject of this video. We'll also do rotations, reflections, and dilations, and I'll have a video for each of those transformations. So when we think about a pre-image, we're talking about the original. Like, where do we begin? What do we start with? In our example over here, we have a square that is ABCD. That is our pre-image. And so the image is the new shape or polygon, if you will. And in this case, it's a translation. So a translation means that we're going to be sliding it up or down. We're not going to go diagonal. We will go up, and that will be a positive direction. Down, that's a negative direction. Left is a negative direction. And right is a positive direction. And so when we arrive at that new image, we'll just call it the image, we actually label that as A with an apostrophe, and that means A prime. That's how we say that, A prime. If we were to have two apostrophes, that would be a double prime. 3 would be a triple prime, and things like that. So you can see here how I have put A over here. Now it's A prime. Now how did I get from A to A prime? Well, at the bottom, I'm telling you to translate the square ABCD 5 units down and 5 units right and 3 units down. And so hopefully you can see this okay. I go from B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I went to the right because it's positive. All right, it says 5 units right. That's going to be in a positive direction, okay? And then 3 units down, and that's actually going to be, we think of it negative. We would actually be subtracting 3, and I'll show you how to coordinate notation in just a moment. But I went for B, 5 units to the right, 3 units down, and I put a dot. And so B becomes B prime. For A, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right, 1, 2, 3 down. That becomes A prime. For C, I go over 5 and down 3, and that becomes C prime. And you do the same thing for D. And that's a translation. All right, if I were to say go left 5 units, then I would go left 5 units. And I could go up 3, or I could go down 3. I can do different things, but in this case, the translation was 5 units down, 5 units right and 3 units down. Let's do some practice problems. So here I have 2. I'd encourage you to go ahead and play with these. Go ahead and pause the video just after that brief example and go ahead and give them a shot. All right, so now hopefully you did that. And so this first one, number 1, we're going to translate 3 units down and 2 units to the left. And so let's just start with C. We're going to go actually start with B. 3 units down. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and 2 units left. That will go right there. So that is B prime. Now C prime, to go from C to C prime, we're going to go 3 units down and 2 units left. And so that's C prime. And so you can see the beginnings of the triangle right there. A prime, we're going to go 3 units down. So 1, 2, 3. 2 units to the left. So that would be here. That's A prime. And there you have your new triangle. That's what we call our image. So this triangle ABC is our pre-image. And triangle A prime, B prime, C prime is our image. But hopefully you can see how we went down 3 units. Every point has to be down 3 units to the left, in this case, 2 units. Let's go ahead and try number 2. So in this case, we're going to translate 6 units up and 3 units to the right. So let's just start here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 3 units to the right. And we go 3 units right. So plus 6, plus 3, and that is D prime. Same thing for E. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. So there's our new point. That is E prime. So I would draw a line there. F prime is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. It's going to be at the origin. That's F prime. And there it is. You have triangle D prime, E prime, F prime, and you would write it this way. Triangle D prime, E prime, F prime, and that is our image. This triangle here is our pre-image. All right, let's look at another example. What about using coordinate notation? Go to that practice problem there at the bottom in just a moment. And so here what happens is there's a simple formula, and it looks like this. Oop, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. Now, when you look at this, X and Y, that's a coordinate pair. That goes back to a previous video from earlier in the year, but this is a coordinate pair. I have an X coordinate and a Y coordinate, and overall that gives me a point on the Cartesian grid or the XY coordinate plane. And so I like to just draw a simple arrow and say I'm going to add A and add B. I'm going to add A to X and B to Y. Now, A and B are placeholders. So in this case, you can see that I have said, let's do a translation of 6 units to the right and 5 units down. So that means the 6 is going to be substituted in for the A, and the -5 will be substituted in for the B. Now why? Because the X is our horizontal axis and the Y is our vertical axis. So with a +6 here, it is going left and right. It is horizontal. And the -5 is vertical. That's up and down. So it's going to pertain to the Y axis. Now, in this section here, you can see how I've just mathematically calculated A prime, B prime, and C prime. I start with A, which is at -4, right there. That's going to be -4, and that's going to be a +1. And so A is -4, 1. That's the point right there. So here's my arrow. And what have I done with -4? I have added 6. What did I do with the 1, my Y value? I subtracted 5. So basically, I added a -5. That's where the negative comes from. So -4 plus 6 is 2, +2, and 1 minus 5 is a -4. So this would be the location of A prime. Now there's A prime. What's this coordinate? There's a 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. 2 in the X, -4 in the Y. And that's exactly what I have here. And so for B going to B prime, B is at -1 and 1. So I add 6 to the -1 in the X. I subtract 5 from the 1 in the Y. And I get B prime is 5, -4. And that's exactly what this is, 5 and -4. And you can do the same thing for C. But that is called coordinate notation. And it's just kind of a reminder that you don't have to graph these every time. Now, of course, if I ask you to on a quiz or a test, you do, or even the homework. But you can actually do it just with simple mathematics, and you don't have to graph it. So I want you to pause this video and write down the coordinate notation for this practice problem. All right, well, hopefully you did that. And so let's do this. I'm going to work with E, and I'm going to go down until I strike this axis, and then I'll go to the left until I get to this point. And I know that's E prime. So how far down did I go? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I went -6. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I went -4. I went -6 because I went down. -4 because I went to the left. Now you'll notice that I started with our pre-image and I moved towards our image. Now that's important. All right, that gives me my direction. And so let's look at E. I know that E is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 in the X, 2 in the Y. And I know that I'm going to subtract 4 from 7, and 2, I'm going to subtract 6. Now, why did I do that? Because I'm dealing with my horizontal and vertical, and you have to pay attention to that. 7 is my X axis, and I went horizontally 4 units to the left, and that's why I subtract that. So E prime should be 3 and negative 4. Well, let's check that with our drawing here. E prime should be 3, and there's 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's going to be negative 4. So E prime is at 3 and negative 4, so that holds true. Let's go ahead and do F. F is going to be, it looks like 6 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so here, 6 minus 4 and 5 minus 6 equals F prime. That's going to be at 2 and negative 1. Let's double check our graph. There's 2 and negative 1, so F prime checks. That looks good. And let's go to D, and that's going to be at 2, 2. So 2 minus 4 and 2 minus 6. So D prime is going to be negative 2 and negative 4. And let's just double check. There's my negative 2, and it does go down to negative 4. So D prime checks as well. All right, guys, hopefully that made sense. Feel free to send me some questions.